Hello, friends. So it is Thanksgiving Day here in the United States, and it is a very auspicious day because on Thanksgiving Day last year, I tried to take my own life. And I wanted to talk with y'all a little bit about that today, what led up to it, and how it has both changed my life as well as illuminated some things in it. So, yeah, I kind of dropped a pretty big bomb on y'all there. So let me give you some background to start with here. Last September, I was not in a good place. I was going through a period of pretty intense depression. I spent a good portion of September basically trying to talk myself out of creating content, just saying that to myself that it was worthless and it didn't matter. Adding on top of that, I went through a very difficult and incredibly traumatic breakup that also precipitated a whole bunch of financial problems for me as well. So this put me in a place where I felt like what I had spent the last 10 years of my life doing was a complete waste. I felt very worthless and alone and isolated, and very ashamed of myself. I felt like a complete failure in life. Now, clearly, I did not take my own life that day. After going through some incredibly difficult and very, very scary moments, I sat down and wrote out a Facebook post where I listed out everything that I was grateful for over the course of the past year. And it is not a stretch to say that that post saved my life. And I'm very glad that I did it. I'm very glad that I'm here right now. If nothing else today, I am thankful for the fact that I didn't end my life. Now, I have wrestled with depression in my life before on many, many, many occasions. And it is something that tends to come in cycles for me every few years. This last cycle, last November, without a doubt, is the worst that I have experienced in a very, very long time. So the obvious question, why am I sharing this right now? Why am I going public with something that has been a very, very private struggle for my entire life? And I think part of that is feeling as though keeping it private in some respects gives it a kind of power over me that I no longer want it to have. And the other reason is that I want that experience to be something that is helpful for other people. So there's this meme that goes around a lot on the internet that depression is a social construct, that it is something that is a byproduct of the world that we live in because it is so disconnected and we are fixated on comparing ourselves to others through social media. And I absolutely think that these are things that can indeed either trigger or exacerbate depression. But I think it is unbelievably dangerous for us to assume that depression is solely a result of these variables. There's definitely this idea that if you do the thing that you're passionate about and that brings you joy and that makes you feel fulfilled in everything, that all of these bad things that you feel will miraculously go away. And this idea that engaging in the things that you're passionate about, making your mental illnesses go away, is something that further stigmatizes the ability to talk about them. I have that job that so many other people want to have. And granted, I had to work my ass off to get it and everything. But it didn't take away my depression. It didn't mean that things were suddenly fine for me. It's still a struggle that I work through, and it is still a factor, even though I get to do this thing that I love full time. So now I would like to talk about some of the good choices that I made as a result of this and how it has influenced my life since. So a few things that I did as a result of this were that I put more effort into making sure that I was getting physical exercise, and I also put more effort into getting out of the house and engaging in things that I found stimulating more often. Especially like living in DC, looking for events that I know are going to be interesting and unique and kind of nourish me and make me feel like I've put something of value in my day. The other thing I did was I started to run regularly, and I'm pleased to report that that's something that's definitely become habit for me ever since, and a good way both for me to make sure that I'm getting regular exercise, as well as it gives me a few moments out of the day that are just, you know, mine alone to reflect on things and to, you know, kind of digest the world around me. But without a doubt, the best choice that I made was admitting to myself that my problems were bigger than I could face alone, and I sought out mental health resources in the form of a therapist. Now, this gets kind of sticky because, like many other full-time performers out there, I don't make a whole lot of money. I found a great resource, though, called the Open Path Collective, where you can find therapists that are willing to donate some of their time at a reduced rate, and that has been an absolute lifesaver, and I'll go ahead and include a link to that down in the description to this video, because it was invaluable, and I've suggested it now to multiple people as well. And going through the therapy process was incredibly helpful, not only for identifying the immediate things that I was wrestling with, but many of their underlying causes, and peeling back just years worth of traumas and bad habits, and working to retrain myself on how to engage with the world and how to recognize my own responses as they were arising and be able to make better choices. I think it is unfortunately one of those things that, especially those of us who are in artistic pursuits or in creative communities, that the first start when we're dealing with mental health issues is to have people kind of shore us up and tell us that we're wonderful and we're awesome and everything, without really addressing many of the underlying issues. And the problem with that is that it always becomes a band-aid on the problem rather than finding solutions for it. You know, getting validation and positive reinforcement from your friends is not a bad thing, but there has to be more to coping with mental health than just that. And I think one thing that's really important to emphasize here is that it is work. You have to put in the effort. You have to identify things and practice them and work on them. And there's no silver bullet for that. It is hard work, but it's important work. So for those of you out there that are wrestling with mental health problems, whether it be depression, anxiety, any number of other mental illnesses, I hear you, I see you, and I understand what you're going through. And I'm sorry that we have this in common. Now, there may not necessarily be a cure as we would understand it for what you experience, but that doesn't mean that there aren't resources that can help. I firmly expect to be wrestling with depression my entire life. But that doesn't mean that I cannot learn tools to help me cope with it when I'm feeling it, or to prevent the worst possible effects of it when they do come on. There's this perception that people who battle these things are weak somehow, and I think sometimes our friends and coworkers, well-meaning as they are, miss the fact that it's not weakness to be battling with something inside of yourself, especially when, you know, the injuries from it are not visible. What I will say is it's a battle to work on. It's a battle to work towards mental health. It is a battle to work on yourself. It's a battle to identify all of these different pieces working inside of you, whether they be the byproducts of past traumas or, you know, neurochemical based or what have you. It is a battle. And I'm proud of you for fighting it. So, have a good Thanksgiving. I'm thankful that you're here, and I'm thankful that I'm here too. Have a good one. All right. Well then, before I shove off, I just really want to thank my wonderful supporters on Patreon, because while I was going through all of this last year, knowing that I could depend on their support was a big thing that got me from month to month and prevented a financial calamity from being a major financial calamity. If you would like to support the work that I do and these videos that you're watching and everything, head on over to patreon.com/DrexFactorPoi. And thank you in advance. And thank all of you out there that have supported my work over the years, because it absolutely means the world to me.